Welcome back. We're live, pal. Now, if you can see us on the free F4W YouTube channel, that is because we are doing a test. And the test is we are showing the show to the free audience, but the folks who can comment are the video subscribers. And what we're also testing is the ability to take super chats from the free viewers. So that's kind of what we're doing today. Let us know what you think. Shoot some feedback to both Andrew and myself. You all know how to get a hold of us on social media. But yeah, so that's the plan for today. Let's bring in Andrew because I want to explain, or we're paying off a bet here. Andrew, how are you today?
Yes, sir. The bet was I was able to convince Tony to make the show free, right? Is that the bet?
Exactly. And not we're not talking TK. We're talking the other Tony, TL.
TL. The leader, Tony the leader.
All right, producer, Suncast. You have a video that I put together when we made this bet months ago. It was about CM Punk, and if you can play that video, and then we will follow up with the payoff of this bet. All right, last question before we get out of here. Does Tony Khan mention the name CM Punk before Collision?
Oh man, you want to take a bet? You want to do a bet?
Yes, bet.
Let's do a bet. Let's do a $1 bet here on the show. I'm gonna say yes. He gets mentioned,
Okay.
but in a very weird
no.
way. Not like, hey, CM Punk's on the show. I don't think we get that, but I think they do mention CM Punk and allude to Chicago.
Okay, we have a bet. I was gonna say,
you don't think he will?
No, I don't think he will.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I mean, I think he should, but I don't think he will. I think there will be allusions to it. I think there will be things that make you believe that he's going to be there, but I don't think he's going to say the name CM Punk. But yeah, so we have our bet. Someone will win, someone will lose. And okay, you said $1. I was going to say a bottle of scotch, but $1's fine with me too.
Oh yeah, I'll do a bottle of scotch. Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, let's do that. That's even better.
Make it raise the stakes. All right, there you go. So that bet was on whether or not he was going to announce that CM Punk was going to be at Collision, right? Was that the bet?
Was this before that fallout on Tuesday that screwed up the scrum?
No, I thought it was after.
Not the scrum.
I actually don't remember
the media, the upfronts.
But actually, what I think it was after. But anyways, what we were talking about was if you could even say the name CM Punk on Dynamite to build for Collision. And I thought they were going to be way more secretive. And you thought that they were going to say it. And then literally they said it like the next day on TV and you won. And what was funny is that after we stopped recording, you said, oh, I just got some information from somebody. And it was actually clarification that they were going to mention his name. So everyone didn't know that I had lost the bet already. But
you knew.
It wasn't until Wednesday. But I knew that I had lost the bet, minutes after we made it. So the payoff was a bottle of scotch, and I sent Andrew over.
And what I got to say, Garrett is a total effing class act. Look at this bottle. Glenn Levitt, one of my favorites, and it's a very good. It's the Founders Reserve. I'm very excited for this. So I'm going to open this up. I saved it. I was very tempted to drink this. My wife was gone with the kids last week, and I was very tempted to have this. Wow, this is a nice big one too. You did not cheap out on this bet, huh?
Oh, look, man.
You know, what do I got to get you like a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, I guess, when I lose a bet.
Yeah, well, it was the first bet on air. He had to pay off big. I couldn't shintz on the bet. Actually, that might not be a good word. I don't even know what that means anymore. But so congratulations. I have mine as well, and I open it, but I am still working. So I have like the tiniest little.
All right.
So
we'll cheers before we get into wrestling here.
Cheers for Andrew.
Nice. Cheers
for winning this bet. Congratulations.
Mm. It's a full body. I taste I taste apricot and I taste
Yeah.
oak. I'm not a Scotch. I love Scotch. I love Scotch. I love bourbon. I love whiskey. I'm far more educated with wine
Yeah.
and shockingly tequila now because I took a tequila class.
No way.
So I had to for work. Like we had a Sauvignon, whatever it is for tequila. We had one come, and I did this whole thing with them. I want to get into whiskey and I want to educate myself on whiskey. So that's going to be my next obsession after wrestling. I'll start doing the scoops when it comes to whiskey. You want to do that?
No, that's awesome.
We're drunk, pal. We're loaded, pal. That'll be the name of the show.
One of the most fun times I've had drinking with a friend is to go and do a tequila tasting. And this was before I even really liked tequila. And I was like, that tasting got me into like trying to, because I just, I wasn't, my palate is still, I would say it's not very rich, but I didn't know like, these different flavors of tequila, these different brands, the way they do it. So I had a lot of fun with it. So, and I kind of I like doing the same thing with bourbons and Scotch, and we've done a gin tasting as well. It's just, I just love the information as well.
I'm getting into gin now.
Yeah.
My go-to has been gin martinis, and I'm a vodka martini guy, and I've been doing all gin martinis, and I'm absolutely loving it.
There you go. I like it. As we get older, we get into other stuff.
The Sunday was not I mean, Sunday was a debauchery-filled afternoon for the Zarians, so all I did was drink gin martinis from 2:00 in the afternoon till about time I passed out. So it was nice. Sorry, John.
Uh-oh. All right. So let's we are gonna have to get into some wrestling stuff here. We didn't have a show last week, so I kind of wanted to keep track of where you were with Collision. And we're gonna have some information as far as the success of that show for Warner Brothers. But as a viewer, are you able to watch Collision with everybody else? Or has that experience been the same since the first couple episodes where you were very much into this show? And so how has the last couple weeks with Collision been for you?
So I have watched live every week. The last 2 weeks I've watched it on like a 30-minute delay. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little behind. Just because I couldn't get my act together to sit down in front of the TV at 8:00, which rarely happens on a Saturday. Saturday, I'm like done by 6. Like I don't go out on Saturdays. I'm done with my day. The last 2 weeks we've had people over. It's the summer, so it's been a little bit the timing. But I still love watching it on a Saturday night. There's something very special about it. I got to tell you, and that intro, that cold open that they do, that's like Saturday night's main event. Really,
it's awesome.
I don't listen. For me and you're older than me. I'm going to be 40, right? For us, we have this nostalgic memory of this. I don't know what it means to like a 22-year-old watching wrestling today. I'd love to know. Does that do anything for you? Do you dig it, or is it nothing for you? It's just an opening. I don't know.
It definitely works for me as a way to open the show. And here's also why it works is because it's different from anything else going on in wrestling today, the way that they open. So you kind of see, okay, how are they going to do it this time? Who's going to be on it this time? They even tried a little bit something different with Ricky Starks. He drove up in his car. That's what I was saying. It was different, and you kind of sat there waiting and waiting for this dude to get out.
You know what it was? It wasn't the concept of it that I didn't like. I didn't like how it was shot because it looked like it was shot on an iPhone. It didn't look like a big national, cable television production.
Like that a lot of time though. And we'll talk about this in a second because it is something that is different from what AEW usually does. But I feel like the skits with Adam Cole and MJF are shot on an iPhone.
I love that, right? I love those. Juice Robinson's my favorite wrestler. He's been the star. It's been Juice, it's been Jay, and then it's been CM Punk for me.
Yeah,
on that show. That order.
So I'm glad that you said that because CM Punk is the star of this show, supposedly, right? Yeah. Like he's the guy that they created the show around. Like that was the idea. We're gonna give this guy his own show in his own style of wrestling, more to his pace. We're going to change it and make it a little bit different from Dynamite. And it's almost like when when Eminem came on the Blueprint with Jay-Z to do Renegade, and all of the Eminem fans were like, oh, he killed Jay-Z on his own song. I feel like CM Punk has been overshadowed on almost every episode of his own TV show. Maybe that's by choice. Maybe that's kind of the goal, is to get other people over. But he's not
I was
been
told
the
this by
star of his own
design.
show. Okay.
I asked about that because I do know there's going to be a focus put on him soon. It's going to shift to him soon. But I think what they wanted to do is use the first couple weeks. Obviously, use CM Punk to leverage everything, right? But get these guys like Hobbs, Ricky. Those are two guys that are homegrown. I'm using hand quotes for people listening, right? Because someone's going to say, no, they wrestled somewhere else. Those are homegrown guys that they want to
Daly
put
City,
emphasis
baby.
on.
Will Hobbs. That's where I saw Will Hobbs. Daly City.
Dude, he's great.
AEW.
He's fantastic. He's unbelievable. He's great. The size, his demeanor, it's great. But they're putting things in place that I'm liking. I very much like that Juice Robinson and Jay White, especially Jay White, because he's so good, have this ability. Andrade's in a key story with Buddy. You're seeing the shift over with the Acclaim becoming a trio, right? I think, I don't know if I spoiled it on this one, but it looks like that's the match at All In. That's the trios match.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like a Billy Gunn retirement match or something?
Well, not if the finish is what I think it is. I can't see him retiring then. Yeah. But listen, everything could change, right? But you're seeing a little bit of that shift in the positioning. I very much like that show. I do. And the people at Warner absolutely love it. And firsthand, I mean, we were talking right before the show, and I got a text message today with some stats on that show. I don't want to say it because then it becomes a war of measurement and all that stuff. But I'll talk about
what it really means versus how they use it internally versus how wrestling fans are used to understanding that information.
So I don't want to go into it, but all you need to worry about is that Warner Discovery is ecstatic with their performance on Dynamite. Even Rampage performs for that time slot. And Collision, they're very happy. I haven't heard anything, and this isn't coming from people that want wrestling to be prime focus, right? These are regular people that don't give a crap. They just look at the numbers and the marketing and the advertising and all that stuff, and they're thrilled. They love having this on their platform because it's inexpensive, first-run, sports-ish programming that you're not going to get 52 weeks out of the year. It's impossible. 54 weeks out of 60 weeks out of the year. Let's use Titan math. There's 92 weeks in a year. So, it's a very unique opportunity, especially for USA as well and Fox. We saw what they did on FS1 with SmackDown.
Oh, yeah.
They were up, like 40-something% from the last time they were on. The key demo was a 0.44 on FS1 on a station that nobody watches. They did 1.5 million people. I mean, that's unbelievable.
You know what? What was different about this FS1 is from the last times I remember, didn't AEW try and load up Rampage a little bit to kind of go against the FS1 SmackDown? And this time, I mean, they had the Royal Rampage. Whether or not you thought that was loading up, I think we need more. I didn't think it was loading up necessarily, but you had one of your big stars in Darby, who then fought on Collision the next night. But I thought they would have made a little bit bigger of a deal out of that Rampage just because,
Yeah. I enjoyed Rampage this week. I enjoyed Dynamite, obviously, and I very much enjoyed Collision. I thought they were all really good shows.
Okay, here's my question about Collision, because I asked you at the top of this how your process has been in watching all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Mine got kind of... I had plans this weekend on both Saturday and Sunday. Yay for me and yay for my wife, I'm sure. She, rather than being inside, we had plans to do stuff. So by the time I got to Collision, I didn't start it until Sunday night, and I didn't even get to finish it because I also had G1 to catch up on. I had SmackDown to catch up on, which I was able to catch up on Saturday. But Collision kind of fell and fell and fell in my priorities. And I really did not finish Collision until this morning. And the only reason I even finished it is because I knew you and I were going to talk about it. If I didn't have to talk about it, I might have just taken an L on Collision and just been like, you know what?
And
I
that's
just
not
missed
good.
it. And that's
not
that
good
was
because it's only a couple weeks in.
Yeah. So that's
I didn't do that with Dynamite for a couple years. It took me a while not to miss a Dynamite the first couple days. It's taking you what, 6 weeks?
Yeah, I kind of felt bad too. I was like, man, I enjoy this show. For the most part, I enjoy it more than Dynamite. I don't know that I would say this week. I think I like Dynamite better this week. But for the most part, it's kind of my style of wrestling show. But at the same time, when I have to kind of rush through something, I'm not really enjoying it the way that I want to enjoy it as well. Like I'm fast forwarding through stuff that's kind of not important. And, for the last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks, actually, they've had long matches dominate the 2 hours. And this week was the main event that, I don't know. I thought it was fine, but I don't know if it needed to be, the last half hour of the show. So, so I don't know, that was a choice. And I saw the ratings. The pattern was, the fans came back for the last, the main segment, though the show was pretty even. I thought ratings wise, I think the peak, at least for the 18 to 49, was right at the top of the second hour. So it's I think it's working. If I have something to do, and this is what's going to happen, not this weekend, but next weekend, SummerSlam heads up against Collision, man.
Yeah, and I'm watching SummerSlam.
Yeah,
I'm not watching Collision if that's the choice.
Until Sunday morning, probably, right? Sunday morning, you'll probably check
Sunday
out
morning.
Collision.
Which is fine. And I think in the long run, when it comes to linear television, right, linear programming, the way that we look at these numbers and ratings is going to be very different in 24 months. Yes. More and more, we're hearing about DVR plus 3. This is becoming a thing. This is all I hear about. When I speak to people at Warner and NBC.
Explain what that means to people.
So there's different ways to measure, right? There's the Fast National, which doesn't really matter. There's the overnight numbers that come in, and that is the accumulation of your West Coast and East Coast numbers combined, and they look at that, and that is live, and that is for advertisers. That is what matters to advertisers. Because that's what they've been told. Live programming, everything is DVR proof. Sports are DVR proof. So you invest more money. Your ad rate is higher for live sports than it would be for a Family Guy rerun. However, TV viewership is changing. I'm trying to be careful here because I want to use the right terminology. When I speak to people at Warner, for example, or people at NBCU, on the USA side, when they're talking to me about numbers, they're now throwing that DVR plus 3.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is, your I don't know what the Fox numbers are. I got to dig for the NBC one, for the Raw numbers. I had it last week. I think Dave also has those. I think Dave said it a couple weeks ago, and it was like right exactly where I had heard. But you're looking at, the show does 3 million live viewers. What does that mean in 3 days on DVR, on demand programming? It means a lot more because you're going to get at least 25% more in your numbers. If you're up against, I think for Collision's sake, next week, that number is going to be very high, that DVR plus 3. I wouldn't even look at your live numbers. About 1 million people are being taken away as far in the wrestling universe, because that's probably what's going to view SummerSlam. It's going to be probably over 1 million viewers, and I'm willing to bet they're going to gloat and say this is the most viewed SummerSlam of all time. Or if it's not, then I won't get that message. But it's a very interesting shift in programming, and what AEW has done is the same thing with WWE with the picture-in-picture commercials. Kind of makes that number important, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That DVR plus 3 could be as important. I mean, depending on how linear TV shifts, that DVR plus 3 number is going to be as important as your live viewership eventually.
Yeah. Yep.
So that is the shift. Like, we no longer this whole same night number, overnight number, that's going to go away. Like, nobody cares about that. It's going to be your overall metrics that they accumulate from everything, and that's how you get numbers like 650 million people consumed WWE this year, or whatever. I'm throwing a weird number, right? And you're like, how is that possible? And then you look at the structure of it. There's different ways to measure. It's not 1998 anymore. And that's a benefit for both WWE and AEW, since we're moving away from linear TV and we're going more to streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help? Did I make sense of that?
No, it makes total sense. And I think the hard part with some folks is that when you're creating new ways to look at information to be helpful for the current time frame, people are just used to, oh, what did Nitro and Raw do back in the day? And television has changed so much, and the household numbers are so down compared to that time frame.
Yeah,
it's not an apples to apples measurement anymore. And now we have, the DVR came into play sometime in the late 90s, I think. TiVo and Replay TV, whenever that was. I think it was late 90s. But they didn't have those measurements, right? Because you couldn't tap into to what that was, and
Cable
there was a smaller number of people who had those devices. Now everybody, if you have cable, you have one of those devices, so you can tap into those numbers now, and they're more meaningful. So I think that's the problem: is people expect you to go, oh, but what did Raw do in 1998? Like, it's wrestling so much, no, it's just a different art. It's a different measurement, and the audiences are just way different now.
Listen, 28 million people watch the Golden Girls every week. It would probably be 2.5 million people now. And that was for RJ City. I brought up a Golden Girls reference for RJ. He's a huge Golden Girls fan. So am I.
You remember, were you at the, this would have been All Out 2021, CM Punk, I think it was after Rampage, and he was singing "Thank You for Being a Friend" to the audience. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. It's changing, like Max, right? Because Max is a big topic right now for AEW.
Yes.
Max put out those numbers for Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, right? They put those numbers out, and you're like, 18 million people watch this, and you find out it's over like the week.
It's not. No one. The majority of the audience doesn't watch live for stuff like that.
Nobody does. Nobody watches it live anymore. It's not appointment television. It's different now, and you're competing with TikTok.
Except for sports, right? Sports is really the only thing that's bulletproof when it comes to
that. That's shifting too.
But even I don't know what the measurement was, but I saw the Women's World Cup Team USA. They played against Vietnam, and I think they did 5.3 million or something.
Big,
I would imagine that
number.
Was for that night. Maybe it wasn't all live, but I thought that was a really solid number for that show, because that's what replaced SmackDown. That's why SmackDown got moved to FS1. Yeah. So live sports.
You know what? I'm willing to bet. Deal. You know how much probably they paid for that, for the rights for that? They probably paid a ton of money.
Oh yeah,
and it only did 2 million viewers more than, a quote unquote fake sport.
Yeah, if Roman Reigns and Jey Uso are in that main event segment on Fox, it probably does double the number than it did on FS1.
Yeah.
So, we're bouncing around a little bit here because we haven't chatted in a couple weeks. But you mentioned HBO Max. You were also the person who broke the story that we were going to have to pay for 2 pay-per-views in a row for AEW. Is there any update on that story for All In and All Out?
So I can say a few things, because I kept some detail. I wasn't sure on some details there, right? Now I'm pretty sure. The show is not going to be on Max. All In being on Max became a internet wish dream for some reason.
It kind of makes sense. We were kind of hopeful that was what was going to happen.
It makes a ton of sense, but they don't have the infrastructure for it. It's not ready. That aspect of Max and whatever they're going to do with the programming is not ready. You know, Showtime, for example, has Showtime Boxing. You have to go to a separate website for Showtime Boxing pay-per-views. They don't have that ability. It's not integrated. It's the same exact problem. Nobody has that integration yet for pay-per-views on their streaming services like this. Unless you're Fight or unless you're another pay-per-view provider like I guess a PLE provider like BR. Everybody, I think even on the Warner side, like BR is going to go away eventually. There's no place for it really if you have Max, but Max doesn't have the integration with ordering a pay-per-view. Yeah, you could air it live, but why would you give away the biggest show you've ever done for free that people are going to be very interested in? You're going to have 80,000 people there. That's intriguing enough for people to order it. So,
well, Dave's argument, though, right?
What's Dave's argument?
Dave's argument is you already made the money on the gate, and you can find a way to find the biggest audience for maybe the best opportunity to show that you are big time to a
so where would you put it? You would put it on fan. So would you put a 5-hour show on TBS or TNT, or
I think that's what he was
free
sort
on Max?
Hopeful about.
Yeah, that I don't think that was a real consideration. I'm sure someone pitched it, but I don't think it was a real consideration. I do know that the bundle was pitched from AEW to bundle it, the two shows.
So rather than 50 a piece, it's like you get a percentage off.
$74.99.
Yeah,
$74.99 for both. That was what I don't. But it was so early on. I have no idea if that's going to be a possibility. I do know that both sides agree that you can't do a $50 pay-per-view, or you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But listen, I get Dave's point. You've already made the money on the gate, but there's no such thing as not wanting to make more money when in this business, in wrestling, especially in any kind of entertainment, because that money could dry up tomorrow.
I think the other thing, though, is kind of what we are talking about, which is the ask, right? At some point,
the ask is big, huge ask.
Yeah.
The ask for us.
Well, the ask for us right now is on a show that we get because we have a cable TV package or a streaming package, but it's not like we got to pay extra for Collision. And I was just telling you how, oh man, like I couldn't watch it in the time frame, and it became old, and because I had plans. Now we will make sure that we get to watch All In because it'll be a big show. So I will prioritize All In. But then to ask the next week to pay also for All Out, which we are not as invested in because this is not, All Out is not a historic show. They better figure out how to promote All Out, sooner than later as far as what the big match is going to be, because I think that one will struggle just coming the week after. It's going to be less, more than likely, just because of that.
Or, but think about it. Look at it this way, right? Let's say they get their average number of 149,000, let's say, that order this pay-per-view at $79.99 for two shows. They do a great job in 1 week to build all out. The names are too close. They'll do a great job to build All Out the following week. 140,000 people have already paid for this show. You may get that FOMO last minute buy-in of like another 50,000, and All Out could end up becoming your most successful pay-per-view. So there's positives here for the company. I understand at the end of the day, it's annoying for the viewers. I'd be annoyed. I mean, listen, I got to pay for it. I don't get my pay-per-views for free. Yeah. I'm paying. I think
I will probably watch one of those at Dave's house. So I'll pay for one, So I'm definitely paying for All In because Dave's going to be in London.
But Dave is in London. Yeah. So there's a couple scenarios here. One would be, where do you put it? It should be on BR, and they should charge for it. I don't think it should be free. I as a fan, I would love it for it to be free, but as if I was making a business decision, I would say this should not be free. You don't want to give away especially with some of the rumored matches that's brewing, I don't think this is a pay-per-view to give away for free. But I think it's terrible timing to have so many shows back to back at the same time, not even a month apart. You got a week. It just so happened that it happened like that. I don't ever imagine this will ever happen again.
And
You will never have two shows like this back to back.
And also, Tony wants to keep that all-out Labor Day show because that is now what they do every year, right? So that's why he wants that show to stay in that same time frame.
Yeah. So what do? Do you move it up a couple of weeks and make this the early August, late July show that competes with SummerSlam? This is your WrestleMania, but you do it in the summer. And the other thing is they are going to go to more pay-per-views. Monthly or so pay-per-views, maybe 11 pay-per-views a year, maybe 8, 9 pay-per-views a year.
Okay, now
it's a different story.
Now that scares me more than it did before you said that, because if I'm already missing Collision on a weekend where I just had plans, some of those pay-per-views I'm also not going to be able to plan around because I have a family and I have stuff going on and I can't dedicate so many weeks in a month to watch wrestling pay-per-view. So that is a different story. And that's where, I know Tony said, and I talked to Dave about this on Friday. Tony said that there's never been a time in wrestling where you add more pay-per-views and it has had a negative effect. And he's right,
but that was 20 years ago.
Well, except one company is super duper hot and you are secondary, and you also just added a second show or a third show technically on Saturday.
And the other company, the pay-per-views are free.
Technically. But think about when WWF did this, right? When WWF and WCW went to a monthly pay-per-view, there was just one show. Now that you had the Saturday weekend show, which was already sort of phasing out, and you had some syndication stuff, but you had Raw and you had Nitro. Those were the main shows. You didn't also then have SmackDown and then have Thunder and then add an extra hour and call it whatever. Like, you only had those shows as your main shows, and then you added a pay-per-view one out of every 4 weeks. The amount of content you are asking wrestling fans to watch and pay attention to now is way different. So I'm not sure that that's the perfect apples to apples comparison.
I think we're going to get some sort of hybrid here, because if you're looking as far as business goes, right, pay-per-view business, at the time when WWE decided that they're going to go to the network for $9.99, there was a lot of pushback internally, that between people on the board and people in business positions. I know that Vince and George Barrios and Michelle Wilson were on different pages when it came to whether or not to have every pay-per-view free on the WWE network. A lot of the ideas were you keep the big four on pay-per-view and everything else becomes free, which I think would have been a better, it would have been long-term wise, I think it would have been a smarter decision to keep those on pay-per-view, because we saw the pay-per-view model did not die. UFC is still on pay-per-view. Boxing does unbelievable business on pay-per-view. Yeah, every month is a lot to ask, but UFC is able to do it. So why couldn't WWE? Now that they can't go back. Once you go forward with this, you can't now start charging people.
Could you do WrestleMania?
We saw that model.
What if they were just like only WrestleMania?
I think because of their partnership with Peacock and the benefit it is for Peacock when it comes to live viewers over time, they wouldn't want to. I know that there was conversations to possibly put it on NBC at one point, WrestleMania, and give it away, treat it like the Super Bowl. We've had. These are real conversations, and obviously,
I think
it changes.
I wouldn't.
All the time.
Why I wouldn't do that? I think that live number would be very disappointing, and they would have to explain.
That is exactly, why. And I also think part of the problem is, does AEW want to expose it? What their number on Turner could be for the biggest show ever?
That's an interesting point. All right, let's.
I got a message from somebody right now while we're doing this. They're watching, and they said, "Yep, And I said, to what?
Before we move on, because I do want to talk about some current stuff here and just get your thoughts on it.
Hold on. I'm sorry. One more thing. When it comes to HBO, right? I think when they're talking about doing monthly pay-per-views, they're talking about they're going to have a streaming partner for this. And they cannot expect $600 to $700 a year from the individual to order, a year, every pay-per-view, $50 a month.
Yeah. So you think they build the infrastructure?
I think they have to. I think they have to build the infrastructure because they're not in that position. And what's going to end up happening, you can't lower the price because A, then you cheapen the product in people's minds. Yeah. And 2, you're already doing like 8 pay-per-views. And if you cut the cost of it, you're breaking even at the end.
Yeah.
If you still do the same amount of viewers, and you most likely won't because you're going to get less for some of these shows.
Yep. Nope. I hear you. All right. We had mentioned at the top of this that we were doing this test, and I wanted to see if we figured out, were we able to accept super chats on this thing the way that we did?
We did. We got 2. We got 2 super chats. If you could see.
I know one of them was from Miguel Rubio, who is a friend of mine, and he said he said Zarian needs to come to Vegas next year. That was his request.
You know what? That is a big reality.
Well, you think you can do it? Because it's also a very busy time for your work.
I think I'll be in Vegas a little bit more often.
Oh,
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. And what was the second one? Did you want to put that one up too?
Second one. Oh, we got a third one. We got 3. I don't know if we can pull it up here. It was a member chat. Don't know if this counts as a super chat, but do you think All In will be on Max or just on BR and Fight? I think it is going to be on BR and Fight, but also they do have Johan Promotions as their business partner.
For the movie theaters.
So, for the movie theaters and for pay-per-views and businesses. Like if I want to order from my bar, I go through Johan Promotions to order it, and that means that they have, most likely they're on DirecTV.
Sure.
Because Johan works with the cable provider. So I'm imagining this is going to be on traditional pay-per-view.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. All right, did you have the last one? And then we can move on to some more wrestling stuff.
Yes. The last one is, why do people act like to be an alternative, AEW can't copy anything WWE does? What's wrong with taking the good aspects and putting their own spin on it? I think that's perfectly fine.
Thank you. Trust the process. Perfect segue here, because I was going to ask you about MJF and Adam Cole as the tag team. I just want them to be called the Brochachos, but they have the T-shirt with the "Better Than You, Baby" thing. That, to some hardcore AEW fans, is way more of a WWE style gimmick. And some AEW fans are like, oh gosh, I don't want that on my TV because it's what I don't like about WWE. And then when I go back and I look at the ratings and I see what is the highest rated segment on Dynamite, it is MJF and Adam Cole. So there's a little bit of a disconnect with that audience. Now, maybe some people like it a little bit more than they're willing to say, but at least the rating and the the Nielsen number, it is showing that those segments work. Now, you and I are fans of both companies, so we're not sitting here saying, don't do X, Y, and Z. We're like, hey, just do whatever works. But do you hear the same thing from folks who are maybe lean a little bit more AEW, who are kind of frustrated with those segments?
I thought that segment is great. I absolutely love it. I think you need some of that. Again, you got to blend it, right? It has to be a hybrid of attracting the most amount of viewers at the end of the day. Like, listen, I know nobody gives a crap about the wrestling I like. You're not going to get 3 million people to watch a 1-hour match with Bryan Danielson every week. It's just not going to happen. Listen, I'm sure he'll get 600,000 people that watch it, but if you're looking to grow, you're not getting that because entertainment is what makes WWE. Yeah, I think MJF is such a great babyface, and I think this has elevated Adam Cole.
Yep.
To a lot of people. If you're not familiar with him, you really haven't seen him. This is hysterical. I love it. You need a blend of it because we're seeing on SmackDown, the wrestling is not drawing 3 million people a week or 2.5 million people a week. It's a story. It's not even the match. It's a talking segment, and we saw the importance of that talking segment when they ran the show at the Garden for 38 minutes.
Yes,
that opening segment.
That's the show that you were at.
And then that
was the main event to you because then you just were like, time to go home. I'm gonna beat the traffic.
I was like, this is incredible. I did beat the traffic. Well, I took the train. I beat the train rush, and my kids were so tired.
There you go.
So tired. Mike Johnson was punching me in the back the whole time. I don't know what the hell that was about.
Okay, so you said that, and I agree with you, but here's my worry, and I know Brian Alvarez has been all over this one. It seems like there's an end to this before the peak is over because
that's a problem.
At least we believe that they're creating a match out of this tag team. And poor Dax on Collision was just so flustered by all of the catcalling going on with the
He tried. He really tried to regroup, though.
You could tell he was like visibly frustrated, though. He's like, really? Like, I'm trying to do this promo. You guys are yelling for Adam Cole and MJF. They tried to get they did get a little bit of a Young Bucks dig in there though. That was my favorite part was the Young Bucks thing. So now we have this thing that's working. Like you said, it's elevated Adam Cole. MJF is a friggin' rock star on that TV show. But if they split it up, it is going to be too early. I just sort of feel like MJF needs to be babyface. Now, does he need to lose his title before that happens? Maybe he loses the title and then he turns and he becomes a babyface because he has so much charisma, and this is almost like training for me. Now, a lot of it's tongue in cheek, right? He's pretending purposely on some of this stuff, but I just think he's got such a unique relationship with that audience that when they do pull the trigger on his full babyface turn, I think it's going to be great. I can't wait for it. That's what I'm looking forward to the most is when they finally turn him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, what a natural double turn you could do with a ladder match with CM Punk with both titles hanging. And CM Punk is a full-fledged heel, and MJF just becomes a sympathetic babyface that loses to this a-hole that came back, for all the wrong reasons, storyline-wise. It's funny because he's doing this a lot, Punk. He's doing the Hogan ear to the crowd stuff a lot. He's doing the leg drop. This is me fantasy booking, which I never do. Look, I got goosebumps at my thoughts. I'm so into my own booking, Garrett. I'm telling you. I'm so into it. Wouldn't it be interesting if he aligned himself with Bullet Club Gold?
Yeah.
And FTR has to make that decision, like what happens now? Oh, man, that's terrible. You know what? I'm taking that back because in that scenario, FTR is the Nasty Boys. and they're getting kicked out of that hotel room party. Remember that?
They're doing the pit stop.
The pit stop. I do think you're going to have to do something here with Punk and Max, and that's coming. Is that the match at All In? I don't know. Is that the match in Chicago? I think they could get CM Punk to get booed in Chicago in a ladder match with Max. He turns on Chicago, F you to them, gives them the finger. And now you just created a really strong babyface and a guy that everybody wants to dislike right now.
Yes.
I know, that's just me. I don't know. You tell me. Do you think that's a good idea? What would Dave think of that?
My overarching storyline thought was originally about Kenny Omega beating Max to become the champion. But that was before we knew what was going on with Punk. And now we're using Punk as the top guy. I would actually have him beat Max at All Out. Max does the babyface turn, and then I would eventually have maybe Omega beat Punk, and then you sort of figure it out from there. Maybe somebody beats Omega before Max gets another shot. But that I think but the way that I think about wrestling is my internal question is, who's the biggest babyface, and how does that babyface become the champion? That's just kind of the way that I think about wrestling.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about, how do I get the belt on Kenny Omega so that he can be that great star that we've wanted him to be as a babyface in AEW, because his championship run, he was a heel. And we haven't had that New Japan Kenny Omega that much yet. So that's how I would look at it. But if CM Punk beats Max, and then, at some point they're feuding and Max gets it back, like, I'm totally fine with that too. But I'm just trying to figure out, how can we get a giant babyface champion? So whether it's Max, whether it's Kenny, somebody like that, those would be my two choices, but Max as a babyface.
I have some thoughts on this, but we have another super chat from Trust the Process. If you want to go into that.
Go for it.
He goes, one more thing. I get you're saying WBD doesn't have the infrastructure for live streaming, but why can't they just put AEW Library on Max right now? And it's very simple. It is a contract year, and it would be foolish for WBD to negotiate that before the contract is signed, and be foolish for AEW to negotiate that before the contract is signed, whatever they're going to get, because there's more value in your assets. So AEW would look at this as, of course we want to be on Max. This helps us with our leverage, and this helps us with getting more money. And Warner would see this as, well, you're giving us more, and this justifies paying you more, because obviously they're going to get paid more. So I think it's all coming down to logistics at this point. It has nothing to do with WBD not wanting AEW content on Max. That's not a thing. Of course they want it. It's just they got to figure out how they're going to do this. It's bureaucracy. It's a corporation that just merged with another one and it's disastrous. They're hemorrhaging money.
And the big rumor is that they're going to sell to Comcast. Like, that's the big rumor of that. This whole thing was built to sell to Comcast.
Yeah. I don't know. Will regulators allow that?
Who knows? I mean, that would be like, when we were younger, that would be the big no, but there's been some big deals made of late. And then there was the deal, that the Microsoft thing that just got allowed. So who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. My other thought about that is, when it comes to Max, and when it comes to all of these other, the NBA rights are coming up, right? I think every deal from here on out has a streaming aspect to it. So we'll see with the NBA. Does Apple get involved? Do they get like a small slice? Does Amazon get a small slice? Does Peacock get a small slice, with the idea that maybe the NBA goes back to NBC, which is where it was when I was a kid? You got my spider senses tingling. I would love the NBA back on NBC with the playoff music. Yeah. Do you get the John Tesh song? Like, that would be great.
Oh man.
And the reason why they left is because the rights were going crazy, and ABC had ESPN, and so they were able to, and ESPN was the biggest moneymaker out of all these things, because that was the big story last week, and Dave and I talked about it on Wrestling Observer Radio, which was ESPN. What do you do with ESPN? And where is the NBA going to get involved and be a partner to ESPN? Like, that was like one of the rumors. So this whole thing is moving so quickly, and things are going to change a lot, and it's going to be great for us, because we're going to be able to talk about it.
Well, I think a lot of this, and we were talking off the air about, the days of the angel investor and the venture capital investment into startups that's kind of drying up. The concept of, I'm going to lose money for the next 15 years is not something that people really enjoy right now, with just the situation in the world.
Thank Wall Street for that.
Yeah, well, I think this is actually a positive, right? I think this is just the system just regulating itself, where these streaming rights fees are ridiculous, and you're losing your ass on them. These are loss leaders. Having the NFL on NBC, for example, right? When it is, you're not making much money. You're losing money on the NFL on there, but you're gaining it for whatever is following, or whatever is prior to this. So that concept, in talking to people, that is slowly going away. So if you want to give ownership that you have less of a rights fee and everybody does the rev split more than anything else, of course that's a smart way to go. But I don't know how realistic it's going to be when somebody comes out and says, "Oh, ESPN is only giving you, $100 million." I'm throwing a basic number for people to follow. $100 million over the next 5 years.
What are you, the XFL?
On the XFL,
No,
they're going to give you $10 million. They're going to give you $100 million, but you're gonna have ownership in everything. So you're gonna actually make $250 million or $300 million, and then somebody comes and said, "No, I'm going to give you $400 million, and we're going to call it a day, and I'm going to lose my ass on this, but I'm going to build my brand like an Amazon or an Apple that could do that." Apple has more money than many governments in this world. They don't care about losing some money on the NFL. That's a disruptor to the system. So I'm very curious on this ESPN rev share, ownership share thing that they're planning on doing.
It's Bob Iger, man. He's got some choices to make for that company.
I love this stuff, dude. This is the stuff I love. I love it. And you do too. You like these kind of conversations.
I read more about this stuff than almost anything. I subscribe to a couple different newsletters that focus on media business and sports business. So that's it's right up my alley. Well, all right, we only got a couple minutes.
All right, go ahead. No. Go.
No, I was going to say we only have a couple minutes here. And I still wanted to get back to your thoughts on Blood and Guts, which is, it's already a week over, but I haven't been able to talk to you about Blood and Guts yet. Was Blood and Guts exactly what you wanted, or was it a little bit too much for you?
I'm going to tell you something.
What they showed us on television. I
watched it live, and I'm like, what is going on? What's on my head? And I was bleeding. I don't know how that happened. I enjoyed it. I think some people didn't enjoy it as much as I did. It was a little different than previous years, but this is a match that you got to pull back a little bit. It was great. Like, I very much liked it. I didn't dislike it. I thought the finish was wacky because they were missing a lot of spots, and that's the problem with having two rings and not doing it consistently, which you shouldn't. But you're gonna miss some things. Who was the star of that match? That's
not
my
Kota
question.
Ibushi. It was not Kota Ibushi.
It was not Kota Ibushi for sure. He was a little bit of a thick boy. And this guy has had a very rough couple years. And not to put any blame or anything. I think he showed up and he did his thing. But there really wasn't a breakout star. Like, I thought the last time Eddie Kingston was a breakout star in the one that he was in.
Yeah.
It just happened. I can't tell you why.
You know who would have been?
Focus.
You know who would have been if they shot it correctly was Mox. Because he showed a heart in saving his teammate. But they missed the shot, and we didn't get to see actually what happened. So that moment is kind of lost in time. It had to be explained to us because of the way that they missed it. And, that's part of this. And it's part of what I didn't like about that match.
What did Dave give that match?
I think a 4 and 3/4. Did he give a
rating? Okay, you know what? That's a very fair number. I think that's a very fair number. I enjoyed it a lot. I also watched it, and I'm gonna set this up. I watched it in my tub. Okay. And I was a bottle of wine in.
There you go. That is literally the way to watch this stuff. Is like,
isn't that
have
a
glass of wine.
Yeah,
you loosen up. Maybe I'm not focusing so much on on things that are small picture.
I wasn't looking at their footing in that match. I thought it was fun. I thought the it was a Moxley hardcore match. Cesaro was the workhorse. I think Takeshita should have done more in that match.
He was lost.
I feel like he got lost. He was totally lost in that match, and I'm a big fan of his. They could have done more to build that story with Takeshita and him. But listen, I've watched a ton of War Games matches. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is essentially War Games. To every this is not a hybrid of War Games. It is War Games. When you take a bolt cutter and you leave the ring, don't you forfeit for your team?
This is what I asked Dave on Wrestling Observer Radio. I said, I remember the origin of the original War Games. Now, that doesn't mean AEW has to be beholden to those old rules. But my instinct was exactly what your instinct was, which is, he's giving up, and so the match is over. And then they just kept wrestling.
So is the other part of the story, is Pac part of Don Callis's group?
I don't. Yeah, it's a good question because he had Takeshita to walk out.
I think what I would do, again, Andrew booking may not make sense to people.
Goosebumps again. Here we go.
Look! Ooh, that's my spider senses. The last time this happened, I predicted what was going to happen. I could see the future. I don't want to talk about the next election. Okay, I'm seeing visions of it already. I would say Takeshita obviously with Callis, recruit Pac in that group. Takeshita and Punk have a match at, All In, because they're probably leading to that at All In. Maybe a tag. Maybe it's a tag match with him and Ibushi. The Golden Lovers versus... the Golden Lovers versus Callis's crew. And Ibushi freaking turns on Kenny.
Wow.
And that's your all-out match.
Golden Lovers heartbreak.
Yeah, they're not on the same page in the match. It's not the same Golden Lovers. There's no love. It's just gold.
Omega's getting down on him for his conditioning.
Something happens. Yeah, like Ibushi, maybe Ibushi messes up a little bit, and Kenny's like, "What the hell you doing?" And he turns on Kenny, and that's the match. I want to see that.
That'd be crazy. That'll be crazy. I don't know. I think you kind of have to give the Golden Lovers a little bit of a run.
Don't report it, okay? Nobody report that.
And because then it would just make the breakup bigger. But yeah, I mean, there's a long tail origin story, or there's a long tail story there that if people are, close to that story,
how would you do it?
Mean something to them.
How would you do it
to break up Kenny and Ibushi?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd break them up. I think it'd make people cry if those guys broke up. Might make them cry if they had to break up their team. I don't know. They had that really, really good match in the G1. So maybe it is more of a friend match than actually an enemy's match.
I think Ibushi has to come out and and do I obviously in Japanese, but you turned on me. You left me. You left me to become a big star, to become a big TV star. Yeah. You left your friend. You didn't call me. I went through all this trouble and heartache as my best friend in the freaking world abandons me. And in the middle of a pandemic, I have nobody around me. All this bad stuff happens to me.
Yeah.
What a natural storyline. And Kenny's like, no, I didn't. And he's like, yeah, you did. And that's why I'm going with this wacko, Don Callis.
That's just
with
like
the most beautiful shoes on the planet. Great shoes on him.
That's just like Hogan and Orndorff, how it happened. No, it didn't. It was Hogan. Hogan didn't show up to the gym. And
you know what? Orndorff was the babyface there. Trust the process. Andrew's fantasy booking is cinema.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It is.
And then CM Punk does the leg drop. I'm telling you.
All right, quickly, we're gonna get out of here. I just wanted to mention the stuff on Dynamite. That's what I was kind of leading up to.
Yeah,
but
we could extend if you want 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes.
Cassidy and AR Fox, Darby Allin against Swerve Strickland, so to pay off the Rampage thing. Britt Baker against Taya, so we get to see Taya beat Sky Blue on Collision. Pac against Pac. I got it right the first time, against Gravity. MJF and Adam Cole, the Brochachos. And then Moxley and Claudio against Best Friends against the Lucha Bros. So not an action-packed Dynamite, but man, they threw everything against the wall for Dynamite last week, so can't expect them to duplicate that every week. But I wanted to thank folks for testing this thing with us. We're attempting to do something in the future based off of this test that we think a lot of our viewers will really enjoy, but I can't let the cat out of the bag quite yet because we still have a lot of things to sort of figure out on that end.
A lot of stuff.
Mostly schedules is the big part. But thank you for, and I don't know, send Tony Leader an email if you want the show to be back free on the YouTube channel. We'll see. Maybe if there's so much feedback, he just won't.
No, we are free. Aren't we free?
From here on out, we'll see.
Oh,
that's
okay.
yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Maybe I'll forget. Maybe I'll forget to hit it to members only after we're live.
All right.
I'm becoming so defiant. This is like the Stern Show of F4W.
Exactly. And thanks
the bad
everybody
boys
for
of the show.
thanks everybody for listening as well on the audio podcast version. So for Andrew, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.